My world is small. It's composed of the four walls of my tiny, rented apartment, the soul-crushing beige cubicle where I work, and the worn-out vinyl seats of my late father's car. The car is the only thing he ever gave me that felt like a gift instead of a burden. It's a heavy, old boat of a thing, a relic from an era I never knew, and most nights, it's my sanctuary. You see, I have this pressure. A constant, low-frequency hum of dread that lives behind my eyes. It's a cocktail of financial anxiety, social awkwardness, and the crushing, existential weight of a life that feels like it's being lived on a treadmill set to a slow, grinding pace. Some nights, the pressure gets so bad I feel like my skull is going to crack. So I drive down a long, lonely stretch of state highway that cuts through the darkness between towns. It's a road to nowhere, really. Just 2 lanes of cracked asphalt flanked by endless, silent fields and the occasional, skeletal tree. It's out there, in the deep, velvet black of the night, that I do something I know is stupid. I pick up hitchhikers. I know the risks. I've seen the news reports, heard the horror stories. But the truth is, I'm lonely, and the quiet, contained intimacy of sharing a small space with a stranger for a few miles. It helps. It's a brief, fleeting connection in a life that has none. A way to feel like I'm not the only person awake in the world. The first few were normal. A young soldier on a weekend leave, his uniform crisp, his stories of basic training both boring and fascinating. A college kid with a beat-up guitar case, heading home for the holidays. They'd talk, I'd listen, and for a little while, the pressure in my head would ease, replaced by their stories. Then, one night, I picked him up. He was just standing on the shoulder of the road, a tall, thin silhouette against the faint glow of the moon. He wasn't thumbing a ride. He was just standing there, waiting. I pulled over, my gut telling me to keep going, but my loneliness and boredom won out. He opened the back door and slid in without a word. He was off. His clothes were simple, dark trousers, a button-down shirt, but they were cut in a style that was vaguely out of date, like something from a photograph from 30 or 40 years ago. He was unnaturally still, his hands resting on his knees, his posture rigid. He didn't speak. He just stared straight ahead and, with one long, pale finger, pointed down the road. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "Sure thing," I mumbled, and pulled back onto the highway. We drove in total, unnerving silence. The usual classic rock station on my old AM radio seemed to have faded to pure, hissing static the moment he got in. The silence in the car was so absolute it felt heavy, like a physical weight pressing in on me. I kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror. He never moved. He didn't even seem to be breathing. Miles crawled by. The knot of anxiety in my stomach, the pressure behind my eyes, it was a screaming, frantic thing now. The enclosed space of the car felt like a coffin. I was about to pull over, to tell him to get out, when he slowly, deliberately lifted his hand and tapped twice on the passenger side window. We were in the middle of nowhere. No lights, no houses, no crossroads. Just the empty road and the dark fields. I pulled over. He got out as silently as he had gotten in, closed the door with a soft click, and stood on the shoulder of the road as I sped away. I didn't look back, and then, it happened. It was like a switch was flipped. A dam inside me broke. An incredible, inexplicable wave of pure, blissful relief washed over me. The crushing pressure in my head didn't just ease, it vanished. Completely. The knot of glass in my stomach dissolved into warm, liquid peace. The static on the radio suddenly cleared, and a song I loved came on, sounding crisper and more vibrant than I had ever heard it. The air in the car, which had felt stale and suffocating, now tasted clean and sweet. I took a deep, shuddering breath, the first truly deep breath I felt I had taken in years. The dread of my job, the fear of the bills, the constant, grinding anxiety. It was all gone. I was light. I was happy. I spent the rest of the night driving with the windows down, singing along to the radio, feeling a joy so profound it was almost a religious experience. The feeling lasted for 2 glorious days. I was a different person. I was confident at work. I made jokes with my coworkers. I slept a deep, dreamless, perfect sleep. But by the 3rd day, the pressure started to seep back in, a slow, creeping tide of the old dread. I knew what I had to do. I had to find him again. That night, I drove back out to that lonely stretch of road. I drove for an hour, a desperate hope warring with the fear that it had just been a fluke, a bizarre, one-time psychological event. And then I saw him. Standing on the shoulder. In the exact same spot, as still and silent as a statue. My heart leaped. I pulled over. He got in. The same unnerving silence. The same empty miles. The same 2 taps on the window. And the same glorious, euphoric, soul-cleansing release the moment he was gone. It became my therapy. My addiction. Once a week, every Tuesday night, I would make my pilgrimage. I would drive out to the road, and he would always be there. I would pour all of my accumulated stress, anxiety, and sadness into the silence, and he would take it. He would carry it away into the darkness, leaving me clean, light, and free, my life transformed. With the anxiety gone, I was able to function. I got a small promotion at work. I started talking to people, making tentative friendships. For the first time, I felt like I was actually living, not just surviving. All for the price of a few gallons of gas and a silent, weekly ride with a ghost. But after a few months, the effect started to diminish. The high wasn't as high. The relief wasn't as absolute. The feeling of peace would only last a day, then half a day. The passenger was still taking something, but it felt like he was only taking the top layer, leaving the deeper, older anxieties untouched. I needed more. I needed a stronger dose. And if he only fed on my negative emotions, I realized, with a chilling, addict's logic, that I would have to give him more to eat. I started to cultivate my own misery. I began to farm my own dread. I started small. I'd deliberately miss a bill payment, just so I could spend a few days with the cold dread of a late fee notice hanging over my head. I'd take on extra, impossible deadlines at work, knowing I would have to work myself to the bone. Just to feel that raw, frantic stress, and it worked. The more miserable I was during the week, the more powerful the release was on Tuesday night. The high was back, better than ever. So I pushed it further. I started picking fights with my boss over trivial things, reveling in the hot, angry surge of adrenaline and the subsequent days of walking on eggshells. I started borrowing money I didn't need, just to feel the crushing weight of the debt. I was a self-destructive artist, and my medium was my own life. I was tearing it apart, piece by piece, just to have a stronger negative emotion to feed the silent man in my car so I could feel a few hours of peace. It was a vicious, insane cycle, and I was completely, hopelessly trapped within it. The accident happened 3 weeks ago. It wasn't even his fault, not directly. It was mine. I was driving home from a deliberately terrible day at work. A day where I had accidentally deleted a crucial file, incurring the full, screaming wrath of my supervisor. I was buzzing with a potent cocktail of shame and anxiety, already looking forward to my ride the next night. I was distracted. I ran a red light. It wasn't a bad crash. The other driver was fine. My old car was crumpled, but fixable. My only injury was a clean break in my left tibia. A broken leg. At the hospital, as I was lying in the ER, a doctor came in with my X-rays. He put them up on the light box. "Well, the good news is, it's a simple fracture," he said, pointing with a pen. 6 to 8 weeks in a cast, and you should be good as new." He paused, his brow furrowed. He tapped a spot on the X-ray, a little higher up on my tibia, away from the break. But what is this? I looked. There, on the image of my bone, was a strange, dark, spiderweb-like growth. It was a shadow on the film, a patch of darkness that didn't belong. It looks like some kind of a lesion, the doctor said, his voice now a low, clinical murmur. A tumor, maybe. We need to run some more tests. The next week was a blur of scans, needles, and quiet, worried conversations in hospital hallways that I wasn't supposed to hear. Finally, the doctor sat me down in a small, sterile office. He had a file in his hands and a look on his face that I knew was not good news. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "The growths. They're not just in your leg. They've spread. They're in your lungs, your liver, your spine. It's a very, very aggressive form of cancer. And the strangest part is, we can find no record of it in your previous medical files. It's as if these tumors, already at a late stage, have appeared out of thin air in just the last few weeks." I just stared at him, my mind a roar of white noise. He kept talking, using words like prognosis and palliative care and making arrangements. But I wasn't listening. I was thinking about my silent passenger. I was thinking about the weekly ritual. I was thinking about all that pain, all that anxiety, all that dread I had fed him. It hadn't just vanished. It had to go somewhere. Did he converted them somehow? He had taken my mental anguish and transformed it, giving it back to me in a new, physical, and utterly malignant form. The tumors were my anxiety. They were my dread. They were the physical manifestation of all the poison I had willingly cultivated and then handed over. The doctor's final words cut through the haze. "There are some treatment options we can try, but to be frank, I've never seen anything progress this quickly. I can't predict what will happen. But I could. I knew what would happen. The doctor had said it was too late. There was no cure for this, and in that moment of absolute, soul-crushing certainty, a strange, quiet calm settled over me. I'm dying. That is a fact. And with that fact comes a whole new world of fear. The fear of pain. The fear of the unknown. The fear of leaving nothing behind. It's a vast, crushing, ultimate anxiety. The strongest dose I've ever had, and I know exactly what to do with it. I checked myself out of the hospital this morning. My leg is in a cast, but I can drive. My old, battered car is waiting for me. And tonight is Tuesday. I'm writing this as my final goodbye, and as a warning. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful of the easy solutions, the silent helpers who offer to take your burdens away. It's better to carry your own pain. It's better to face your own dread. Because the things that offer to take it from you are not your friends. They're just looking for a new place to put it. I'm not afraid anymore. That's the strange part. My decision is made. The doctor said my time is short. So why should I spend it in terror? Why not spend it in that clean, pure, blissful peace, even if it's just for a day or two? It's time to go now. My car is waiting. The lonely road is calling. And I know, with an absolute certainty, that he'll be out there, standing on the shoulder, waiting for me. And I have one last, beautiful, terrible gift to give him. One final ride.